Early One Morning by Kodiak. Twilight Sparkle awoke early in the morning to the sound of incessant knocking at her door. She groaned quietly, pondering for a moment why Spike hadn't yet answered, but the pounding forced the thought out of her mind for the moment. Whatever the reason, her assistant, it seemed, was not going to answer the door for her. Gathering what little precious energy she could, Twilight rolled her way off the side of the bed, just barely landing on her hooves before giving a languid stretch. First her forelegs, then her back, then her hind legs. Finally, doing something she was still fairly unaccustomed to doing, her wings were spread wide and she felt her bones crack and pop quietly. The knocking hadn't even slowed. "I'm coming!" Twilight snapped, glancing out the window. The sun was just now rising above the horizon, and her habit of late-night studying was doing her mood no favors. Although any pony who decided getting her up this early in the morning was a good idea could use a stern talking to. Or, if Twilight's current scowl was any indication, a brief shouting fit. Barely taking note of the unclean state of her library, Twilight strode straight through the clutter of books and notes to the front door, much like a deer sprinting effortlessly through the woods. When she reached the large oak passageway, she uttered a silent mental prayer for whoever ended up on the receiving end of her rapidly growing fury. "What?" she shouted as the door was nearly flung off its hinges in her newly found eloquent magic. The pony on the other side of the door didn't even flinch. "Twilight, listen," Rainbow said quickly, taking a few well-timed steps away from the angered Alicorn. "I know you're probably pretty mad at me for understatement of your life," Twilight deadpanned, noting the gap between them was much too far for her to take a jab with the horn. "What do you want?" Rainbow nodded. "Right, about that. You see, there's a very good reason for all of this, but I can't tell you until tomorrow." Twilight blinked, confusion momentarily overriding anger, though not for long, as she set her strongest death glare at the Pegasus before her. "What?" she asked plainly. Okay. Rainbow just repeating it to herself for nearly a minute, staring at the ground and breathing in huffs, as though she'd just run a marathon. Finally, she looked up. "Twi, I gotta say, you're a good friend. A really, really good friend, and I wouldn't trade that for the world." Twilight's mental faculties came to a full stop. Even her burning anger ran low on fuel as she ran over the unexpected statement. Eventually, she offered a quiet, "You too?" Rainbow shook her head fiercely. No! Gotta do this right!" She seemed to be talking more to herself than Twilight, or to some pony else, like a pony were sitting in a bush nearby, watching her. Perhaps it was a prank? "Alright, okay. Well, I guess the best way is to just get it over with, right?" Twilight squinted at her unusually uptight friend. The closer she looked, the more she began to notice. Rainbow's mane was normally unkempt, but now it looked like she'd been put in a blender this morning. Her wings were a mess, looking like she hadn't preened herself in months, and her eyes were bloodshot. When was the last time she'd gotten a proper night's rest? "Rainbow, are you okay?" "What, me? No, I mean, yes, I'm fine. Fine. She was off again, repeating "fine" over and over, to the point where it no longer sounded like a real word. "Rainbow?" Twilight repeated, carefully leaning down to try and catch the mare's gaze. She had gone from furious to concerned, to downright scared for her friend's mental well-being. "Would you like to come in?" Rainbow's head snapped up, eyes wide as dinner plates as she stared. No. She paused, looking up at the sky. "No, I don't have time, or do I? Another pause. "I do have time. No, I don't. I'll make time. So, yes, I would like to come in. That sounds right, doesn't it?" Twilight nodded slowly, stepping to the side and watching with a frown as Rainbow's shaking hoofs carried her into the paper jungle. "Sorry about the mess. Looks
normal,"
Rainbow trailed off, looking at the books with a twitching eye.
"Everything's normal. It's all going to be alright. Alright. Alright."
Following Rainbow through the mess of her front room, Twilight watched as the mare absent-mindedly dodged every obstacle in the room, something even she couldn't do without proper focus, and she was the one who put everything where it was. Without fail or fault, Rainbow found her way onto the couch and flopped down, waiting in silence for Twilight to sit next to her.
"Okay,"
Rainbow started, looking around the room. Her eyes covered everything she could see until they finally settled on Twilight. Her hoofs slowed their shaking, and she gave her thigh a solid punch, flinching from the blow.
"Okay. Not dreaming. Everything looks normal. Twilight's sitting next to me, and I'm going to talk to her."
Twilight's brow creased as her frown deepened.
"Rainbow Dash, what's going on?" "I'm going to talk to you,"
Rainbow announced, smiling proudly.
"I said I wouldn't trade your friendship for the world already, right? Back at the door. You remember that, don't you?"
A sliver of fear slipped into her voice.
Yeah, you did, I remember."
Rainbow's head nodded up and down spastically.
"Good. Very good. Starting to blend together, you know. Anyway, okay, I already said that was sex. Oh, right. Well, here's the thing. I'm not exactly, what's the word? Content with our current relationship? Sounds right. Sounds normal. Good. Normal's good." "Rainbow?"
Twilight started cautiously.
"What are you talking about? Why are you... Just let me finish!"
Rainbow snapped. She sounded angry, but a wide smile never left her lips.
"Please, it's normal to let me finish, right? We're aiming for normal here, Twi. Anything not normal won't work."
Twilight opened her mouth, but closed it slowly. Whatever was wrong, it seemed Rainbow had her own way of getting to the problem. Still, she paid close attention to her friend.
"Right, so... I'm not content..." I said that already, didn't I?
She chuckled maniacally.
"Of course I did. So I'm saying is that I'd like more than just friendship with you." "Rainbow, are you..." "I love you, Twilight!"
Rainbow shouted suddenly. A deathly silence fell over the library immediately after. Even the book seemed quieter than normal. Nothing moved, nothing spoke, nothing breathed. After a solid minute of silence, Rainbow jumped off the couch.
No! That wasn't normal! Oh, stupid me! Stupid!
Twilight blinked, staring at the mirror as she paced around the cluttered room, still muttering to herself.
"Rainbow?"
she ventured slowly, standing up and reaching a hoof out to catch her friend's shoulder.
"It's not going to work!"
Rainbow yelled, turning around and staring half fearfully and half desperately at Twilight.
"It all has to be normal. If it's not normal, it won't work. Would you describe that as normal?" Quite frankly, I wouldn't describe anything that's happened so far today as normal. Why are... Exactly!
Rainbow took to the air, flapping wings and scattering loose paper everywhere. Twilight cringed as she watched things spill and books, towers topple.
"Hey, They'll be fine tomorrow,"
Rainbow said dismissively, waving a hoof nonchalantly in Twilight's direction.
"Rainbow, will you take a breath for 1 minute and tell me what the hey is going on with you?"
Twilight demanded, stomping her hoof on the floor and using her magic to grab Rainbow's tail before she could fly away.
Ever since you got here this morning, you've been acting, well, crazy. Now this? What's going on with you?"
Rainbow growled low in her throat, obeying the tug of Twilight's magic and landing on the floor.
"Never believe me when I tell you. I've tried so many times, but you just don't get it. It's not a joke. I'm not pranking you. I'm not lying. I, Rainbow Dash, love you, Twilight Sparkle. Why is that so hard for you, for your egg-headed mind to understand?"
Twilight sighed quietly, releasing her hold.
"I need you to calm down, okay? Do you think you can do that for me?"
Huffing, Rainbow scraped at the floor, looking over her shoulder skeptically. After a moment, she nodded.
Fine, whatever. I'm calm. Nice and normal and calm. Good. Now, from the top, explain to me what's going on,
Twilight instructed, getting them both back to the couch.
Well, this is new,
Rainbow muttered to herself before looking back to Twilight.
I came here to ask you out on a date, Twilight, but you said no.
Twilight tilted her head.
What do you mean? I haven't said no yet. You actually didn't even ask me out on a date yet. No!
Rainbow shook her head roughly.
I mean, yesterday, or today, or maybe a month ago. I don't know! It all seems the same, but the important part is that I asked you out on a date and you said no. I was pretty upset, but I got over it. I went to bed the night and I woke up the same day. You mean you woke up later in the night?
Again, Rainbow shook her head.
No, I mean, I woke up that day, as in the morning of that same day, not the next day. I came to your house again and you didn't remember anything. Rainbow, that's simply not possible. I haven't seen you in a few days. You were in Klausel at that big weather meeting, remember? You're supposed to be back last night. Twilight, that...
Rainbow frowned, brow furrowing for a moment.
I barely remember that. It's been so long. Almost a year, I think. I was keeping track of the days once I figured it out, but I stopped.
Twilight placed a gentle hoof on Rainbow's shoulder.
But that was just yesterday. No, it was months, years, I don't even know. It wasn't yesterday. Yesterday I flew into your bedroom window, woke you up, and kissed you. Do you remember that? What?
Twilight reeled back with a gasp.
What are you talking about?
Rainbow threw her hooves in the air.
Exactly! You don't remember. I don't know how or why, but somehow every night I wake up the same morning every time. I can remember what I did the previous day, but no pony else does. Like I'm stuck repeating the same day over and over. It's not just Ponyville either. I've flown to Canterlot and talked to the Princess Celestia. She doesn't remember a thing the next day. I figured the only way to fix things is to act normal, just keep being normal, doing everything as I normally would, and things would just go back to normal, right? Rainbow, I don't think... It's the only thing left!
Rainbow yelled desperately.
I've tried everything! This must be the dozenth time I've told you about what's going on, and you've never believed me. One time Celestia had me arrested, but I just woke up back at home. The only thing I have left is to do what I would have done normally, ask you on a date, only get you to say yes instead of no. It's never worked. It's the only thing that's never worked.
Twilight held up her hoof, silently asking Rainbow to stop. Hesitantly, she closed her mouth and Twilight took a deep breath.
Rainbow, what you're describing to me here sounds an awful lot like a time loop. You've said that before, but you always say it's impossible. That's because it is,
Twilight said simply.
Are you pranking me or something?
Rainbow's eyes widened.
Twi, do I look like I'm pranking you? This has been going on for months!
Twilight nodded, thinking silently for a moment.
Well, all right then. You say I've never said yes, right? Well then. Yes, I'll go on a date with you. But you did it!
Rainbow smiled widely.
You said yes! You finally did something new! Rainbow, are you? This is amazing! All it took was me completely flipping out on you! Oh, why didn't I try that sooner? No, I did. It must have been exactly what I said. This is amazing. It's finally normal. It'll stop! I'll wake up tomorrow, and it'll actually be tomorrow instead of today.
Twilight watched, concerned and slightly amused, as Rainbow took off and joyfully celebrated. She shook her head, chuckling quietly.
This was all some kind of ploy to get me to say yes, wasn't it? You know I'd probably have given you a shot no matter what, right? You think?
Rainbow trailed off, staring at her for a moment before shrugging it off.
It doesn't matter what you think. The important thing is that you said yes. We have to go on a date. It's been so long. What was my plan again? Something about dinner and a play. That's it. I already made the reservations because I thought there was no way you'd say no to my awesomeness. It's tonight at 7. I'll pick you up at 6:30.
With that, she was gone. Took off out the window. Twilight watched her go, confused, more than a little concerned, and curious as to what the rest of the night held for her. The next morning. Twilight groaned as she awoke to the sound of somebody trying to knock a hole through her front door. She sighed, sitting up in bed and flinging the blankets off herself. The sun was just barely above the horizon, and apparently Spike had better things to do today than open the door for whoever was trying to get her attention. Getting out of bed, she stretched languidly and made her way down the door, navigating through the stacks of papers and piles of books, which she really should have cleaned up already. Opening the door and preparing to thoroughly chew out any pony who tried that hard to wake her up, she paused as she saw Rainbow Dash sitting on her doorstep, crying.
Rainbow?
Twilight asked, anger being washed for an instant at the sight of her clearly distraught friend.
What's wrong? You don't remember, do you?
Twilight frowned.
Remember what? What don't I remember?
Rainbow sniffled.
We went out on a date yesterday. To a play, and how could I forget that?
Twilight interrupted with a warm chuckle and a smile.
I had a lot of fun with you. I haven't said we should do it again. Why wouldn't I remember?
Rainbow's jaw fell open, her tears stopping in their tracks. She hastily reached into her ring and pulled out 2 crumpled slips of paper.
I found these on my table this morning. I'm so sorry, Twilight. What do you...
Twilight trailed off into choked silence as she recognized the paper on Rainbow's hoof. There were 2 slips of gold-colored paper, each admitting one to watch a play. Tonight. A play that she very distinctly remembered attending yesterday, where they took the tickets.
You're stuck with me now. I'm so sorry.
Celestia Lays an Egg by the Sexy Men Here. Chapter 42, Verse 5, Part 2, Note 8, Annotated Version, with friendly cooperation of the Library of Milwaukee. Her Royal Highness, Princess Celestia, sat royally on her royal throne in the Royal Hall of Royalness. Okay, she made that last one up, but otherwise it was absolutely true. It had taken her the better part of 1,000 years, but Celestia had learned to exude regalness like other ponies would sweat. Regalness tasted somewhat salty. Today was going to be a day like many had passed before. She had stood up at dawn, which was somewhat easier when dawn was defined by the time you got up, brushed her teeth, showered, brushed her mane, and had a lovely cup of tea and a slice of toast with orange marmalade. The royal secretary, who had long had a thing for the chamberlain, had her the duties that awaited today, while the chamberlain, who had long had a thing for the herald, had laid out her regalia and other assorted knickknacks she was required to wear. Shortly after, the royal herald, who had a thing for the secretary, had announced her arrival at the throne room, when she would now spend the next few hours hearing what pleas her little ponies had, and trying her best to be a just and wise ruler to all. With some concern, she noticed her stomach cramping a little. She made a mental note to let the royal cook check the royal pantry to see if the royal marmalade had gone bad. Introducing the proprietor of Dinks and Do's Emporium of Almost Magical Doodads. Doodad Dinks, the herald blared after a fanfare announced the first petitioner. A rather unassuming stallion in his mid-50s, wearing what would have passed for a Sunday for Sunday clothes some 30 years ago, walked through the large double doors. He looked a bit out of place, and his eyes flitted around the place as if he was just waiting for somebody to jump out from the assembled functionaries and nobles and scream "Surprise!" at him.
"Come closer, my little pony," Celestia said with the motherly timbre she had perfected over the years. This didn't, however, stop him from looking like a deer in the headlights, a tactic which had proven very successful in ending the pony-deer wars, with the only casualty being the pride of the forest dwellers.
"Mr. Doodad is here to offer a business proposal to the royal crown," the herald prompted. He had worked a good 10 years as royal herald, and by now he had seen enough awestruck ponies to know when a bit of help was appreciated. Finally, the stallion found his voice and what was left of his courage, and managed to mumble, "I just wanted to make a Princess Luna plush toy." Celestia smiled warmly. Doodad wasn't the first pony to suddenly become aware that using the likeness of the princesses required a royal decree, a law that, while bothersome, was direly needed after the sudden flood of authentic Princess Celestia erotica back in the Folly-Filly era.
"I'm sure that my sister will be delighted. The royal secretaries will work out the deals after they have confided with her. Hopefully you will be able to begin production before the next—" "Dear God, the pain!"
The assembled nobles started somewhat disturbed at the sudden outburst, while the guards had immediately sprung into threat mode, building a defensive wall between Celestia and the assembled ponies. Celestia was clutching her barrel, waiting for the sudden cramp to subside. After she was done with the cord, she would have to have a very stern talk with her chef.
"It's all right, my little ponies,"
she said to the assembled ponies, who were looking on the mixed expressions of worry and terror. Doodad looked like he was about to have a heart attack.
"Just a little critter bite to your ex-tainted nipples!"
Celestia tried to say before falling flat on her sides, her eyes bulging and her breath turning into labored huffs. To describe what she was feeling as pain would be akin to describing the Quintalite Gala as a party, or to saying that Dragon's breath smelled a bit bad. Some of the guards were beginning to look behind them, starting to question whether defensive wall was really the best option at the moment. "Shouldn't we do something?" one of the more level-headed nobles finally asked, an act for which Celestia was ready to give him a medal or a small dukedom.
"You're right,"
another one chimed in, striking hero pose. "We should panic!" In the matter of seconds, the high society of Canterlot had formed a veritable stampede, doing 1 or 2 laps around the throne before ending in a freestyle chaos and confusion that would have earned them a 9.5 from the spirit of all such things. Celestia's hoof would have slammed into her face, hadn't it been busy clutching her stomach, as if to rip out her organs. Considering the pain she was currently feeling, Celestia was considering this as an option. The guards still stood around unhelpfully. Royal Guard training consisted of mainly 2 things: learning how to remain stone-faced in even the most dire situations, a crash course in how to hinder any enemy long enough for the princesses to do something about it. None of those seemed to be very appropriate at the moment, and so they defaulted to looking uneasily and staring at each other.
"Do something, you fools!"
Celestia screamed while trying to find a position that would ease her agony somewhat. Another round of uneasy stares, followed by panicked frenzy as they joined the nobles in the merrymaking. Celestia, at about this point, had just about a f***ing enough.
"You!"
She pointed at the still frozen Doodad.
"You are now in the Royal Guard. Now get over here and help me!"
"But, ma'am, he hasn't taken the oath," her guard captain objected.
"I don't care!"
Celestia hollered, insides feeling like the legions of Tartarus were currently treading through them. "I have to insist. You can't just become a royal guard like that willy-nilly. There's procedure to follow." Celestia stared at her guard commander disbelievingly, but the stone-faced facade that was his face didn't seem like it would budge any time during the next century.
"Fine, then. Let him speak the bloody oath, but hurry!"
She groaned as she rolled to her other side, hoping that this would at least dull the pain some. Right. Speak after me, would you?" The guard commander addressed the still frozen, solid Doodad. "I hereby swear." Doodad looked at him with wide eyes. "Come on, man, it's not that hard. I hereby swear." I hereby swear." The commander looked at him disapprovingly. "Did I say, A royal guard does not say, Speak loud and clearly, and with pride befitting of a royal guard." His powerful baritone was only slightly undercut by the fact that he had to dodge a thrown chandelier. One of the panicked nobles had catapulted across the room. He still had the intended effect on Doodad, though, who was now standing alert and upright. I hereby swear to uphold the honor of Equestria and Her Royal Highness Celestia and Luna. To uphold the honor of Equestria and Her Royal Highness Celestia and Luna. And to defend all ponies by the Pegasi, Unicorn, or Earth Pony. And to defend all ponies by the Pegasi, Unicorn, or Earth Pony.
I swear by Discord, still petrified dick! If you don't hurry up, I will have you hung by your giblets from the highest tower in Catalot!
The guard commander shook his head annoyedly at the interruption by his monarch. Now we have to start all over again. It was around this time that he was blasted to the nearest wall by a powerful beam of magic. All attendees later swore that it must have come from outside, and the Celestia Storm was only smoking out of coincidence.
Congratulations! You're now the guard commander. You can inure yourself later. Now, help me!
Celestia hissed through gritted teeth at the newly appointed commander, Doodad. Panickedly, Doodad looked around. His first instinct was to call for a doctor, but if there was one among the assembled ponies, he was running around in panic. He would have gone and called someone from outside, but he was pretty sure that him running towards the door looked very much like running away to the agonized and trigger-happy monarch that lay beside her throne. With no options left, he fell back on the only piece of medicine he remembered. He took Celestia's health in his own and as calmly as possible said, "Take deep breaths." Doodad wasn't quite sure Celestia was listening to him or if it was just the pain that forced her to take deep huffs. "Everything's going to be alright," Doodad continued what he hoped to be a reassuring tone. Hint, it wasn't. Celestia let out a wail of pure agony as Doodad tried to get her in a comfortable position. On 3, I need you to push as strongly as you can. 1, 2, 3. Celestia wasn't sure to cry or laugh as the realization struck her that all her little ponies were absolute idiots. Since another cramp surged through her, she settled for screaming. "I can see the tip, just a little more!" Doodad shouted excitedly from a place that Celestia was really sure she didn't want him to stick his nose into. After another few seconds, her eyes sprung wide open.
"The tip of what?"
If there was an answer, it got lost in yet another scream, and when she suddenly felt relief.
"Congratulations, it's
an egg." Doodad stared at the passed-out monarch of Equestria. He really hoped that the expression on her face was the warm glow of motherhood and not a psychotic smile. The commander of the guard was eventually found. Word is that he's almost able to walk again. Doodad turned out to be one of the best guard commanders there ever was, but never forgot about his dream to make a Luna plushie. The herald, the secretary, and the chamberlain, after many trials and tribulations, finally formed a polyamorous group and moved to Haiti. Their story was later novelized and turned into a TV series. Celestia never ate orange marmalade again. Twilight was the father. Twilight punches Flash Sentry by Cloudhop in the face. Ow! What the hell was that for? Flash Sentry barely had time to register the immense pain emanating through his muzzle before Twilight's other hoof came hurtling at him like a bad simile on the 7th grader's compare and contrast essay. Crunch! Ah! Flash Sentry cried out in pain as the purple hoof connected with his left nostril. Flecks of blood spattered across the floor, and he quickly found himself wishing he had opposable thumbs as he tried to staunch the flow of blood from his nose. Oh goddess, is my nose broken? What the hell is wrong with this girl? Why can't I never ask some pony sane for help?
Do you have any idea what you've done?
Thundered the librarian, towering over him with a barely restrained hoof, as though storm clouds were going to materialize just to emphasize her point. Flash Sentry was too busy dealing with the drawbacks of not having thumbs while having a nosebleed to give her anything more than a pained whinny in response.
There are comma splices in this introductory paragraph! Comma splices!
Another hoof was sent his way, but this time he had the presence of mind to duck, and simply grazed his ear. For Celestia's sake, will you he yelled, his bleeding nose giving his dialogue abnormal number of typos.
Where did you learn how to write? kindergarten? This is abysmal! This is fool's hoof work! This is an insult to writers everywhere! It's an insult to books! It's an insult to libraries! It's an insult to me!
To puncture her point, she hurled the offending manuscript at the poor stallion huddled on the floor. Unfortunately, it was only 2 pages long, and simply fluttered harmlessly to the ground. Letting out an annoyed huff, Princess Twilight Sparkle endeavored to pick it up again and begin her slog through its horrendous grammar anew.
And here you use the passive voice! What kind of blasphemy is this? Just how moronic does somebody have to be to write such distasteful trash?
Flash Sentry, on any other day in his life, probably would have been seriously offended by that remark. On this day, however, he was content to let it slide, just as long as she didn't punch him again.
Oh, and look at this,
said Twilight with a sarcastic sneer.
The Lavender Unicorn closed her eyes and leaned forward. The Lavender Unicorn? Seriously? Just say the Celestia forsaken name, for crying out loud! What, are you scared you'll wear it out if you say it too much, huh?
Flash Sentry was beginning to seriously question his life choices at this moment, as he fought desperately to keep his eyes from watering. He had thought that surely weathering whatever complaints Twilight had about his writing ability would be fool's play for a veteran of the Royal Guard. Saying he had been mistaken would amount to an understatement so large it would collapse under its own weight and form a miniature black hole, which would slowly devour the entire planet and then the solar system, leaving nothing but a gaping hole in the fabric of reality, a monument to the fools who thought they could have Twilight Sparkle edit their daring-do fanfiction. The vengeful Alicorn, however, had cornered its prey and shoved no signs of letting up.
You can't even spell rendezvous properly! And this should clearly be an M dash, not an N dash! And you don't put spaces around M dashes either! You even forgot to capitalize Celestia in the second sentence of the 8th paragraph!
Twilight Sparkle was on a roll, fresh from the oven, and she didn't show any signs of cooling down.
And what is this? Mouses? What word is mouses? That doesn't sound like any word I've ever heard of. Maybe you meant mice. Or perhaps meese. Or maybe Mises, just to mix things up a bit.
Flash Sentry trembled as the purple menace leered at him, leveling her head inches from his still bleeding but not nearly as much now muzzle.
What do you have to say for yourself, traitor?
The words dripped from her mouth like marbles in a sawmill.
Please don't kill me, he stuttered.
Twilight snorted, then turned around and went back to reading through the manuscript, spelling out the occasional spelling error or missing comma like a griffin eating fish in midair.
The possessive form of its does not have an apostrophe, and this entire paragraph is a brutal dismemberment of the equestrian language. Why are you telling me about the exact position of the water glass holder when it has zero relevance to the plot? Why mention that her hoof has a small nick in it when it's never mentioned again? Is this what we teach fools in school now? Is writing concisely a dead art? Perhaps I should invent a time machine so I can visit people who could write proper equestrian.
The enraged princess stomped her hoof on the floor hard enough to crack the marble surface. 1,000 miles below them, one of the magical ley lines crossing through Equus shifted its orientation by 1/10 of a degree, inadvertently destroying an entire civilization on another continent that would have discovered Equestria 2 weeks later. Back on the hall, the only hint of the mass destruction taking place on the other side of the planet was the swaying chandelier on the ceiling, as Twilight Sparkle heedlessly continued her volatile rant about the intricacies of grammar. Looking for an exit, Flash had briefly wondered if he could crawl to safety while her back was turned. Suddenly, Twilight let out a gasp, and the onslaught of grammar ground to a halt. Silence filled the room like a really loud dubstep song, interrupted only by Twilight's heavy breathing. The Lavender Unicorn read the offending passage a 3rd time, and then a 4th time, then a 5th and a 6th time. Her mind could barely register what she was singing. You used a semicolon. And you used it correctly! Twilight looked up at Flash Sentry with wide eyes. No pony ever does this! No pony! Flash Sentry's brain was still trying to catch up to what had happened 5 minutes ago, and wasn't exactly operating on a compatible frequency. What? The stallion never really had a chance to figure that out, because Twilight threw his terrible romancer aside and immediately pounced on him with the ferocity of an enraged toaster. Take me, she breathed, her warm breath tickling his bloodied muzzle. And then they fucked. Flash Sentry ended up paying child support for the rest of his life. The end. Stetson by Scribblestick.
The spirits of the elements of harmony are right here!
Applejack wasn't sure what Twilight was talking about, but she knew the unicorn needed her help, and as she took her place beside her newest friend, she knew she wasn't going to back down now. The little piles of stone at Nightmare Moon's host began to glow with a mysterious light, much to the dark mare's bewilderment.
Applejack, who reassured me when I was in doubt, represents the spirit of honesty,
Twilight continued, several stones beginning to circle the orange earth pony, glowing with a strange orange light. Twilight continued to highlight each pony's strengths, from Fluttershy's kindness to Rainbow Dash's loyalty. Another orb appeared in the air above her and transformed into a magnificent crown. Together, the 6 ponies unleashed the magic of the elements of harmony, stripping Nightmare Moon of her dark powers once and for all. The effort took a lot out of them, but it didn't take them long to recover.
Gee, Twilight,
Applejack said once everyone had calmed down a little.
I thought you were just spouting a lot of hooey, but I reckon we really do represent the elements of friendship.
It was a lie. Of course it was a lie. Sure, every pony thought she was honest, hard-working, strong-willed farm pony, but as Applejack stared at her reflection in the mirror, she had to face reality. When he got down to it, she wasn't any more honest than any pony else. The only difference was her lies mattered. Applejack stared into her own green eyes for a long time. The sun was setting, and shadows were creeping up the green, floral print wallpaper that decorated her room. Her old Stetson hung over her green lamp on the nightstand. In front of her lay a blue brush. She undid the red ribbon that held her mane in a ponytail and let the yellow hair fall naturally over her shoulder. Her eyes never left her own image in the mirror. She carefully strapped the brush to her hoof and began running it through her mane in a so familiar rhythm, knocking loose several stray twigs and leaves that had lodged themselves in the mane during the day. All the while, her green eyes stared back at her, forcing her to face the truth. The element of honesty had chosen her, or so Twilight and the princess had said. She'd used the privilege to save a question not once, but twice, so it must have been true. But always in the back of her mind was that doubt, that question that she could never ask or answer. Why? Applejack saw the stallion walking up to the farmhouse and ran outside to meet him.
Papa, guess what Big Mac and I did today? Guess!
Slow down there, Jackie, Pa said with a laugh. Your daddy's had a long day.
Oh, come on,
Applejack pressed, skipping alongside her father.
I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the Southeast Orchard.
Southeast Orchard, huh? Pa repeated. One look at the mountain of apples in the barn told him everything he needed to know, but he decided to humor his daughter. Let's see, did you catch a rabbit?
Nope,
Applejack answered with a giggle.
Guess again.
Pa scratched his chin thoughtfully. Did you find buried treasure?
Pa!
Applejack fell to the ground, her laughter doubling.
Come on, one more guess.
Gee, I don't know, honey, Pa said, laughing along with her. Pa, Applejack and I finished bucking the Southeast Orchard, said Big Mac as he trotted out of the barn.
Big Mac!
Applejack yelled, glaring at her older brother.
You ruined the surprise!
You two did that? All by yourselves? Pa smiled at his children, though they weren't smiling at each other at the moment. You must have worked hard today. I bet you're all plumb tuckered out. Nah, I could buck them apples all day. Big Mac replied.
Yeah, right, Applejack said. You're the one who wanted to quit halfway through.
What do you know? Big Mac demanded. All you do is carry the baskets. Now, kids, Pa said. Don't you start fighting. You know your mama hates it when you quarrel. Yes, Pa, the two youngsters murmured. Good. Go get clean up for supper. I'm sure your mama has whipped up something delicious. Applejack felt the brush snag on a tangle of hair. She carefully worked her way through it until it came undone. The brush caught in the same place for a couple more strokes before it ran smoothly once again. If only every tangle into it could be worked out so easily. Applebloom's laughter drifted into the room from somewhere outside. Applejack stopped brushing and gave her reflection a hard stare. Her sister had never asked about their parents, not directly anyway, but Applejack knew she had plenty of opportunities to tell her. Granny Smith and Big Mac knew, but they wouldn't tell. They would leave it to Applejack, no matter what she told herself. Applejack couldn't bring herself to tell her sister the truth about what happened. She didn't need another angry, accusing glare to haunt her memories.
Applejack, dear, would you fetch me that pie tin?
Applejack retrieved the tin with a sigh and resumed staring glumly at the countertop. This is boring, she murmured.
Well, some pony has to do it,
Ma said as she placed a carefully crafted pie crust in the tin.
We can't all be in the orchard. Otherwise, who would cook? But why do I have to stay inside?
Applejack asked, hoping her pleading stare would convince her mother to let her venture outdoors.
I'm no good at cooking. Pony feathers, Ma said with a chuckle. You're the best apple slicer I've ever seen. I don't want my kid to in apple slicing,
Applejack muttered as she picked up the knife and resumed her work.
Well, what's wrong with that, Sugar Cube?
Ma asked as she filled her pie crust with apples.
Your Granny Smith has a pie-making, Cutie Mark. But that's not me,
Applejack cried.
Well, then you've nothing to worry about,
Ma replied, placing the top crust on the pie before sliding it carefully into the oven. Soon, the smell of fresh apple pie filled the kitchen, making Applejack's stomach rumble.
Whatever your talent is, you'll find it soon enough.
Applejack winced as a beam of sunlight bounced off the mirror and struck her eyes. She walked to the window and pulled the blue flower-print curtains closed. She caught a glimpse of Big Mac hauling some apples towards the house. It looked like Granny Smith was getting ready for another batch of apple pies, but Applejack didn't feel like helping. Not today. Besides, Applebloom was more than happy to slice apples. A photo on her nightstand caught her gaze. It was an old picture of her mother's brother and his wife. Her aunt and Uncle Orange. The memory of her brief stay in Manhattan brought a momentary smile to her face, but the smile disappeared when she remembered why she'd left in the first place. She returned to her mirror and continued brushing her mane, though she knew she'd done it for long enough already. The feel of the bristles running through her hair helped her remember a time before she learned what her lies could do.
Hold still,
Ma said, trying to hold Applejack in place with one hoof and brush her mane with the other.
But Ma, Pa said I'd be working in the orchard all day,
Applejack protested, crossing her foreleg with a scowl.
That's no excuse to leave the house with a messy mane, even if there is a big storm coming in tonight,
her mother replied, tying Applejack's mane back with a piece of ribbon.
There, you look lovely.
Applejack kept pouting, but when she looked in the mirror, she had to admit Ma was right.
Can I go now?
Ma sighed.
All right, but be careful.
Applejack leapt up to her hooves and bolted from the room before Ma could change her mind.
Pa, I'm ready,
Applejack shouted as she skidded to a halt in the barn. There's my Jackie, Pa said with a smile. You ready to hit the Braeburns? Course I'm ready. Applejack paused and raised an eyebrow at him. You mean the apples, not my cousin, right? Pa chuckled. Right. Good. I'll go get my baskets. Hold up there, Pa said. I have something for you. Applejack turned to see him pull a brand new Stetson out of his saddlebag. I know how much you love mine, so I decided to get you your own. What do you think? Applejack's eyes widened, and she had to remind herself to breathe. My very own Stetson? She gasped. Your very own. Applejack squealed and leapt at her father, wrapping her forelegs around his neck as far as they would go. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you! Anything for my little Jackie, Pa replied as he placed that hat on his daughter's head. Run along now. I'll see you out in the orchard. Applejack? She stopped brushing her mane and turned around. Applejack was standing in the doorway. Hi there, Applejack said, putting on her best smile. Is something the matter? Applebloom pawed at the floor. I was wondering if I could ask you about something, she muttered. Sure thing, Sugar Cube, Applejack answered. What is it? Well, I was wondering, Applebloom started. Why did you decide to leave Sweet Apple Acres and live with Aunt and Uncle Orange? Applejack blinked a couple times before turning quickly to face the mirror and continued brushing her mane. I already told you. I wanted to get a taste of the city life. But why? Applebloom asked as she walked closer. There's no reason, Applejack said quickly. I just wanted a change of scenery. Yeah, that's it. You don't sound too sure, Applebloom said. Oh, I'm sure. Don't you think you're brushing your mane a little too quickly? Applejack threw the brush down next to the mirror. Applebloom, I've had a very long day, and I don't need any point of questioning my answers. I went to Manhattan to see what it was like, and when I didn't like it, I came back to the farm. End of story. Applejack picked up the brush and ran it furiously through her mane while Applebloom stared at her. Oh, fine, the filly said at last. Granny Smith said to tell you supper will be ready soon. I'll be down in a minute. Applebloom sighed and walked out of the room. Applejack watched her go out of the corner of her eye, her brush coming to a halt mid-stroke. The farm pony let out a long sigh and buried her face in her forelegs. It was yet another lie to add to her growing collection. How are you doing, Jackie? Pa asked, wiping the sweat from his brow. Great, Pa, Applejack said, forcing her mouth to make a smile. She understood now why her father liked his Stetson so much. The sun showed no mercy on ponies, and the wide-brimmed hat kept the sun out of her eyes no matter which way she turned. You're looking a little beat, Pa said with a laugh. Applejack replied with a vehement shake of her head. I'm ready to handle everything. Pa smiled at her, but his smile quickly vanished when he looked up at the sky. Is that storm today? He muttered. Applejack followed his gaze and gasped. A wall of black storm clouds drifted slowly towards the farm with an occasional flash of lightning. What do we do, Pa? She asked. I want you to head home, Pa said. Tell Mother I'll be there soon. I have a couple things I need to take care of out here. But what about the apples? Applejack asked. A storm could cause a lot of damage. Apples grow back every year, Jackie, Pa replied. Promise me you'll run straight home. But, Pa... Promise me! Applejack's mouth hung open for a moment. I promise, she said at last. Pa nodded. I'll see you when I get home, he said before turning and galloping away. Applejack began her journey home, passing tree after tree, bursting with fruit, waiting to be bucked. Pa and Big Mac worked so hard to take care of the trees, and this storm was going to ruin it all. The words of her promise echoed in her mind, but she had no intention of honoring them quite yet. It would only take a moment to buck a couple more trees, and then she would head home. Supper was unusually and uncomfortably quiet, and Applejack excused herself quickly. She lay on her bed and stared at the ceiling, wondering if perhaps any pony was looking back at her. Turning her head to the side, her gaze rested on her beat-up Stetson, still lying on the lamp where she'd left it. No matter how long she lived, she would never forget the day her father had given it to her. It was a gift from a loving father, and she'd turned it into the hat of a liar, a pony unworthy of the love of the son from whom it came. Applejack heard a knock at her door. She turned to see Apple Bloom poking her head in.
"Hey, sis," she said. "I'm sorry about making you upset earlier."
Applejack closed her eyes and let out a long sigh.
"It's nothing, Apple Bloom. I was just in a bad mood is all."
Apple Bloom took this as a good sign and walked inside.
"Applejack, why don't Big Mac and Granny Smith talk about Mom and Pa?"
Applejack didn't notice how close the storm clouds were until the first raindrop struck her orange coat. She walked quickly, telling herself she still had time. A flash and a boom immediately let her know that wasn't true. She ran to the orchard, dropping several apples as she went.
"It's a hard thing to talk about,"
Applejack said. Apple Bloom sat down next to the bed.
"I know, but I don't really feel like I really know them. I know Ma died a little after I was born, but nobody will tell me anything about Pa."
Something squeezed Applejack's chest, making it hard to breathe or think clearly. She didn't know what it was, but somehow knew it would go away once she reached the farmhouse. Lightning flashed again and again. A dying tree just ahead tipped and fell. Applejack darted around it, but a sudden yank on her mane brought her to a screeching stop. Her apples flew through the air and landed with little squelches on the muddy ground. She tugged against the branches that held her mane, but after the day's work she didn't have the strength to free herself.
"Help!"
Applejack took several deep breaths to calm her racing heart.
"You alright, sis?"
Apple Bloom asked. Applejack squeezed her eyes shut and turned her face away from her sister. How could she lie yet again to someone she loved so deeply? But how could she possibly tell her the truth?
"Some pony! Help me!"
"Jackie!" Pa's distant voice carried through the wind and somehow reached Applejack's ears. There he was, charging toward her as though the storm was powerless to slow him down. "Jackie, are you alright?"
"My mane! It's stuck!"
Applejack cried. Pa grabbed her mane in his teeth and yanked hard. Her mane broke free with a loud snapping of wood, and she shook her head vigorously to get rid of the twigs and branches tangled in her hair. "Come on," Pa said, pushing her forward with his nose. "Let's get out before the storm gets any worse."
"Applejack, talk to me!"
The farmhouse came into sight after what felt like hours of running. Applejack had long since lost track of which drops of water on her face were raindrops and which ones were her tears. "Come on, Jackie," Pa gasped. "Just a little further." Applejack's hoof struck a stone, and she hit the muddy ground with a grunt. She heard her father's hoof slide to a stop next to her. A second later, her first stone as a lightning bolt struck a nearby tree. The next thing she knew, she was flying through the air, the sound of snapping wood, raging wind filling her ears. There was a loud thud when she hit the ground. By the time she got to her hooves, she could no longer see her father. Only the tree that lay where he'd stood a moment before. Applejack tried not to let her body shake, for Apple Bloom's sake. She felt to feel his hoof on her shoulder and squeezed her eyes tighter, willing the tears to stop.
"What's wrong, sis?"
Apple Bloom asked. Applejack took a deep breath and met her sister's wide eyes with her own. How could she tell her? How could she not? She looked at the mirror once again. Her eyes were red and puffy, and her mane was starting to get tangled again.
It was my fault, she whispered.
Applebloom frowned.
What was your fault?
Applejack couldn't bear to look at her own reflection.
It's my fault he's dead.
Ma refused to let Applejack leave the house, and for once, the orange filly didn't argue. She watched from her window as 4 stallions cleared the fallen tree while Ma and Big Mac watched. She couldn't get a good look at what was going on, but her mother's anguished cries were more than enough for her. Applejack turned away from the window and looked at her muddy Stetson, which lay on the floor near her bed. She picked it up and put it on before crossing over to look at herself in the mirror. Her mane and coat were coated in muck, and for a moment she didn't believe she was real looking at her own reflection. This wasn't her. This was the face of a pony who broke her promises. This was the face of a pony who put her loved ones in danger. She tore the Stetson off her head, threw it across the room. Pa had given that hat to Applejack, not the imposter who looked back at her from the glass. Applejack heard the stairs creak and ran to her door. Big Mac was walking slowly up the steps. His head bowed.
What is it?
Applejack asked.
Did they find him?
Yep. Applejack gulped.
Is he okay?
No. Applejack took a step back. Big Mac's accusing glare was more than she could bear. She slammed the door shut before her and huddled on the floor, trying not to hyperventilate.
Pa,
she whispered, as though saying something would make everything okay.
Pa, come back.
She didn't know how much time passed before Granny Smith quietly opened her bedroom door.
I brought you lunch, dear,
she said, softly placing an apple and a daisy sandwich on the floor beside her.
Bring your plate down when you're done.
Applejack stared at the sandwich for a long time. The next day, she returned the plate to the kitchen.
I was running away, Applebloom,
Applejack said. She couldn't believe how much he just told her little sister, but once she started, it was almost impossible to stop.
After what happened, I couldn't bear to face Ma and Big Mac, so I ran away to the city, hoping to leave the past behind me. So why did you come back?
Applebloom asked.
What changed? Cock-a-doodle-doo!
Applejack let out a heavy sigh as she watched the sun rise over the city. She didn't like it. Everyone was so sophisticated. Everything was always so noisy, and she was just a little lost farm pony failing to fit in. She thought leaving her memories behind would help her forget the hole in her heart, but it had only grown worse.
Well, you're up early.
Applejack turned to see her Aunt Orange standing in the doorway.
Is there something on your mind?
Nah, Applejack replied, leaning against the windowsill as she returned her gaze to sunrise.
I'm just an early riser, I guess.
Applejack heard her aunt's clicking footsteps across the room behind her.
You know, your uncle and I have been a little worried about you, Applejack, she said. Now, I know we agreed to let you stay here, but we can't help but wonder if that's really the best thing for you right now.
Applejack frowned and turned around. Aunt Orange was looking at a picture Applejack had placed on her nightstand.
Give me that!
She snapped, snatching the picture from her aunt's grasp and holding it against her chest.
That's mine.
Aunt Orange regarded her for a moment, her face still.
Sit down, Applejack,
she said as she took a seat on the bed, patting the mattress beside her. Applejack reluctantly joined her.
You know your uncle and I love you, but we have to know, why are you really here?
Applejack stared at the picture in her lap. Ma and Pa stood in the center, Pa wore a cocky grin on his face. Ma's smile was small, and she was giving Pa the same look she gave Applejack when she started to whine too much. Big Mac stood at Ma's other side, wearing his yoke as always, a stalk of grain in his mouth. And Applejack just tightened involuntarily as she sucked in a breath. She was standing at her father's side, her green eyes bright and her smile wide. Pa's leg was draped over her shoulder. The orchard stretched behind them for miles, and in her mind she could almost hear her father saying, "His owns will be ready in a day or two, Jackie. Better get the baskets ready." A soft touch on her shoulder snapped her back to reality.
"What's wrong, Applejack?"
asked Aunt Orange.
I miss it,"
Applejack said.
"I miss him."
"Oh, honey." Aunt Orange wrapped her foreleg around Applejack's shoulders and hugged her tight.
"It's a hard thing you're going through, and running away won't make it any easier."
"I'm not running away," Applejack snapped, brushing her aunt's hooves away as she stood and walked back to the window. She looked from the photo to the sunrise and sighed.
"Am I?"
"Of course not, darling," Aunt Orange said softly. For a moment neither spoke.
"You know, your father always said his family was his greatest treasure,"
Aunt Orange continued.
"He used to say that no matter the trial or trouble, you can always count on your family to see you through."
Applejack felt a sudden need to curl up in a ball, but she resisted.
"I don't know if that's the case here,"
she muttered.
"You'll never know unless you try. Are you happy here in the city?"
Aunt Orange asked. Applejack didn't want to be rude, but she slowly shook her head nonetheless.
"Well, why not give it a shot?"
Before Applejack could answer, she heard a loud boom outside. As she watched, a rainbow flew across the sky towards a small town in the distance. She squinted and realized it was Ponyville.
"Well, would you look at that?" said Aunt Orange. "I wonder what that could mean."
A hesitant smile came to Applejack's face.
"It's just the sign I needed."
The next day, Applejack thanked her aunt and uncle for their kindness and caught a train that would take her as close to the farm as she could get. It was a long, dusty walk from the road to the farmhouse. She didn't know what she would do or say when she got there, but one thing was for certain. If there was any place that could fill the hole, it was home. Granny Smith and Big Mac were waiting for her when she arrived.
"Howdy,"
she gasped.
"I'm back."
"And we're glad to see you,"
Granny Smith said with a smile, wrapping her granddaughter in her embrace.
"Big Mac here's been lost without you to help him buck the apples."
"Yep." Applejack was hesitant to look at her brother after the glare he'd given her that fateful day. To her surprise, he was smiling at her. A couple tears slid down her face as she hugged him.
"I'm sorry, Big Mac. It was all my fault."
Big Mac shook his head. "Nope." Applejack smiled up at him.
"So, you forgive me?"
"Yep."
"There's my little Applejack."
The orange fellow turned to see Ma walking toward her, her belly bulging.
"Welcome home."
"Ma, what happened to you?" Applejack asked. "Don't tell me you've been eating all Granny's pies."
"Oh, no," Mom said with a chuckle. "It's nothing like that."
"You're going to have a younger sister in a few weeks,"
Granny Smith said with a wink. Applejack gasped. Ma just smiled.
"You have her mane, you know,"
Applejack said. Applejack glanced up at her red mane and smiled.
"She didn't get to spend a lot of time with you, but she loved you as much as me and Big Mac."
Applejack didn't say anything as she continued to brush her sister's mane. She'd even inherited her mother's touch with the brush.
Applejack looked in the mirror, and for one strange moment she thought it was her mother patiently working on the tangles out of her mane. If only she'd appreciated it more back then.
Pa was a really great pony, wasn't he?
Applejack said at last. He sure was, Applejack agreed. For the first time in years she felt a smile coming to her face at the mention of his name. He was the best stallion I ever knew. I just wish you could have met him.
Maybe I have,
Applejack said. Applejack looked at her sister with a frown.
Graham Smith says you're just like him.
She does?
Stubborn as a bull, but with a heart of gold,
Applejack explained, doing a decent impression of Granny Smith. Applejack giggled.
I reckon if I don't have a father, I'll also have the best big sister Philly could ask for.
Oh, shucks, Applejack said, trying to hide her blush. I wouldn't say that.
Well, I would, Applejack replied. And since I'm the one with the big sister, I'm the one who gets to decide.
Alright, Applejack said with a laugh. I think you've brushed my mane enough. Off to bed. You have school tomorrow. Apple Bloom unfastened the brush from her hoof and placed it carefully by Applejack's mirror.
Good night, big sister.
Good night, Applejack replied. Apple Bloom shut the door behind her, leaving Applejack alone with her thoughts. She grabbed her worn-out Stetson and walked towards her mirror. Bags were starting to form under her eyes, but as the orange mirror studied her reflection, it seemed more familiar somehow. There was a knock at the door, followed by a creak as some pony pushed it open. Big Mac stood in the doorway, yoke around his neck. Applejack frowned, wondering what he wanted. The baskets, Big Mac said. All right. Applejack wondered how she could have forgotten.
He said we'd put him out tonight, so we could get an early start tomorrow.
Yep.
Alright, I'll be down in a moment.
She heard Big Mac walking down the stairs. Applejack tied back her mane and put on her Stetson. Now that she thought about it, she did look a bit like her father. The thought made her smile. Well, Pa, it's time to buck the Brayburns again, she said softly. With a chuckle, she added, The apples. Not my cousin, of course. She gave herself a tip of her hat and walked away. She had a lot of work to do. So, it has come down to this. By Fimble Vinter. Celestia groaned as she surveyed the battlefield before her. Hostile forces besieged her castle, and there was little she could do about it. The bulk of her remaining forces were occupied trying to stave off the advances of her opponent, who had, in a brilliant display of tactical cunning, managed to slip a guard through Celestia's line, and it was not wreaking havoc behind her vanguard. Dimly, Celestia wondered how it had managed to come to this. She had had so many opportunities to end this battle before this moment, but she had squandered them through poor planning and hesitation to take a risk. She still couldn't believe it. Her faithful student, whom she loved like the daughter she would never have, had rebelled against her. The pair were now locked in mortal battle, and casualties were mounted by the hour. But Twilight didn't even seem to notice or even care, as the troops loyal to her were defeated. Among those that had been lost were two of her highest-ranked bishops, the pair seemingly targeted for assassination right from the start by Twilight's ruthless stratagem. It all started out so innocently. Shortly after her coronation, Twilight had expressed an interest in studying military tactics and strategy, claiming that as a princess she had a need to learn such things if Equestria was ever in danger. Celestia knew that she had been studying closely with both her brother, who was a veteran soldier, and General Blackthorn, who was considered to be the finest tactical mind Equestria had ever produced since before Nightmare Moon. Celestia knew that Twilight was gifted, but not like this. Now they were arrayed against each other, two mortal enemies locked in conflict of which there could only be one winner. Celestia was still indignant over the fact that Twilight had dared to challenge her at all. Didn't she love Celestia as much as she did her? And where was Luna, for that matter? Celestia wondered where her sister was. Luna was far better at this sort of thing than she was. Celestia handled the economic and political side of ruling, while Luna, a far superior tactical strategist, held the position of High Commander of Equistria's military. She should be here to fight this battle, not Celestia. With a start, Celestia suddenly realized just where Luna was. She could see the Night Princess style mixed into Twilight strategy. Her bold gambles and high-risk, high-reward chances. So, it seemed that even her sister had betrayed her and sided with the enemy. Celestia grit her teeth and focused back on the battlefield. Her troops couldn't act without her direction, and she had to try and save her castle if she could. Without hesitation, Celestia pulled one of her 2 knights away from the advance and issued him with orders to harass and neutralize, or at least slow down the lone marauding hostile party that had breached her lines. Displaying skill that belied her youth, Twilight redirected her troops to assist with the siege of the castle, leaving a few units exposed in the open to act as bait. Celestia saw them for what they were, a means to sow her downside so that Twilight could net a larger price herself. Celestia cursed at herself for allowing it to come to this in the first place, but she didn't waver. There's nothing to be done about the castle that she hadn't already done, so she struck at Twilight's exposed troops without mercy or remorse. They had chosen their side, and now they had to face the consequences of such a choice. Soon Celestia's ponies had cleared the area of Twilight's rebels, and for the first time Celestia seemed to have the upper hoof for a moment. Sensing a weakness in Twilight's forward lines, Celestia pushed ahead with her remaining forces, eager to try and end this battle quickly. The fighting became more bitter with each passing second, and somehow she knew that Twilight would win in a war of attrition. She had to try and end it now with one swift stroke. To her horror, however, Twilight seemed almost able to predict her move and easily responded by dispatching a few of her troops, mere pawns in the grand scheme to indirect Celestia's advance guard. Though only few in number, they had the advantage of position, and Celestia saw that they would easily be able to rout her forces. She was sure that if pressed, her own units would be able to punch their way through and drive a wedge into Twilight's lines, but not without taking heavy losses. Celestia realized that she had been lured into a trap by Twilight as the Lavender Alicorn pressed forward and took her castle, overwhelming her defenders and gaining the foothold needed to strike at Celestia herself. She had deliberately left a flank open to draw Celestia's forces forward and trap them out of position when her final attack occurred. The few units that Celestia had that were capable of making the trip back would never arrive in time. From her perch above the battle, Celestia looked sadly down at a gleaming marble statue of herself, all alone in its square. She had never liked having such an image of herself present, seeing it as self-serving, but the court had insisted that it was only proper. Right now, however, her statue was being surrounded on all sides by Twilight's forces, and they were eager to move in for the kill. Celestia had nothing left to defend herself with, and they knew it. Twilight's forces were in full control, and the few remaining units that Celestia still commanded were scattered and well out of position. There'd be no help coming today. With a groan, Celestia watched as Twilight's sole remaining knight moved in and toppled her statue, and then it was all over. She had lost. Twilight's little rebellion was successful. Sitting across from her, Twilight instantly rose up on her back hooves, forelegs and wings flapping with excitement of victory.
You are defeated, Celestia! Equestria is mine! She cackled. From now on, all foes must read at least 3 hours every day!
Celestia looked sadly down at her oak table and the chessboard that sat upon it. Pieces lay scattered over its surface, with her king resting on its side.
Best 2 out of 3?
Lunch by Titanium Dragon.
Hey, Apple Bloom. Nice apple strudel you've got there, Diamond Tiara said, smirking over at the food from the other side of the picnic table. Yeah, did your mom make that for you? Silver Spoon asked, before gasping and putting a hoof up in front of her mouth. Oh, right, I forgot. She died so she wouldn't have to.
The two fillies giggled nasally as they sneered at Apple Bloom. Ellen pounded her hooves onto the table, rising up off the bench she was sitting on.
Oh, yeah? Well, at least my sister cares enough about me to make me lunch instead of having some pony else do it for her. Whatever.
Diamond flicked her hoof.
Every pony knows you just get leftovers. That's why it's always apples. Every day.
She smirked.
Of course, my family can afford to eat more than one kind of food. Hey! What are you two doing here?
Scootaloo shouted from in front of the schoolhouse.
Yeah! Leave Apple Bloom alone!
Sweetbelle piped in from beside her.
Jeez, we were just trying to make conversation.
Diamond Tiara shrugged.
Oh well, it's not like Silver Spoon and I want to eat lunch with you blank flanks anyway. Come on, Silver.
She hopped down off the bench and began walking away, the gray filly grabbing both their lunchboxes and hurrying after a moment later.
Ah!
Apple Bloom slammed her lunchbox shut, pounding her hooves on the table.
Oh, come on, Apple Bloom,
Sweetbelle said as she trotted over, depositing her lunchbox on the table next to her friend's.
Don't let them get to you. They're right, though. It's the same thing, every day. What do you mean?
Scootaloo asked, sitting down on the other side of the earth pony.
Apples!
Apple Bloom pounded the table again.
Apples! All I ever eat is apples!
Apple Bloom gesticulated wildly.
No peaches, no pears, no corn! Just apples, day in and day out! But you have a big field of corn out in front of your barn, don't you?
Sweetbelle said from her place on the bench beside Apple Bloom.
Of course we have a big field of corn. And carrots. But do I ever get those for lunch? Nope. It's apple strudel, apple crisp, apple pie, baked apples. Sometimes it's just straight up apples.
Apple Bloom smacked her metal lunchbox with her hoof, sending it sliding across the table.
It's okay. I know how you feel.
Sweetbelle said, setting a hoof on her friend's back as Apple Bloom slumped over the table.
It's not like Rarity is any better. Oh, you need to have a proper lunch for a young lady.
Sweetbelle swatted at the side of her lunchbox with a hoof, flipping the lid open.
Look at this! Lettuce wraps, and they're not even very big. Hold on a tick, Apple Bloom said. I thought you lived with your parents. Why's Rarity making you lunches?
Sweetbelle's head fell.
My parents are on vacation again. It isn't so bad, I guess. I mean, it means I get to spend more time with my sister, but...
She shook her head.
She just makes the exact same thing for lunch every day. Every day. It even looks exactly the same. Well, at least your lunch looks good. Look at mine.
Scootaloo hefted a misshapen sandwich in one hoof.
Peanut butter and jelly, day in and day out, and it doesn't even look right.
The three fillies sighed in unison.
Hey, I've got an idea,
Apple Bloom suddenly said. Sweetbelle lifted her own head, too.
Learn how to cook? No, I mean a more immediate solution to our problems.
Sweetbelle looked from lunchbox to lunchbox, furrowing her brows.
Switch lunches? Nope.
Apple Bloom set one hoof on the lunchbox as she stood up tall and proud.
Today's the day we eat at Sugar Cube Corner. I can't,
Scootaloo said, slumping back on the bench.
I don't have any bits. I'll pay.
Sweetbelle bent down under the table, rummaging through her saddlebags before sighing.
All right, I'm staying with Rarity. My bit bag is at home. Ugh. Well, looks like it's PB&J again,
Scootaloo said as she turned back towards her lunch, lifting up her sandwich only for Apple Bloom to block its passage with her hoof.
Wait, I've got a plan.
Scootaloo blinked.
What is it? Well, you know how Pinkie Pie sometimes tries to give us free samples that were basically whole meat treats?
Scootaloo shook her head.
But Mr. and Mrs. Cake's made her stop doing that. Yeah, but if we snuck in through the back, maybe they wouldn't notice and she could give us free treats. Apple Bloom, you're a genius! Oh, shucks.
Sweetbelle glanced back at the schoolhouse.
We'd better hurry if you want to get back to Sugar Cube Corner before lunch is over. Right,
Scootaloo nodded decisively.
Come on, I'll pull you along in my scooter. It's locked,
Sweetie Belle said, staring back at the door.
Locked? Who the hell locks their door in Ponyville?
Scootaloo glanced between Sweetie Belle and the door.
Can't you, magic open the door or something? Twilight could. I don't know how to do that.
Sweetie Belle hung her head.
Maybe we should just go. No pony ever built a house without laying the first stone.
The other two fillies blinked at Apple Bloom.
That doesn't sound like an apple pun, Scootaloo said. Branching out, okay? Like an apple tree?
Sweetie Belle tilted her head.
No, not like an apple tree. I'm sick of apples.
Apple Bloom stomped her hoof.
Okay,
Scootaloo said, retreating against the side of the building. Sheesh. Apple Bloom shook her head as she sat back on her haunches.
Just let me think.
Apple Bloom's eyes slowly wandered across the back of the building as the other two fillies watched her expectantly.
Say, Scootaloo, you see that vent up there?
Scootaloo's eyes rose.
I see it.
She grinned.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking?
Apple Bloom nodded, clapping her hoofs together.
Let's stick up those boxes and get up there.
The three fillies moved around the back of the shop, pushing empty crates which once held baking supplies up into a makeshift pile, straining as they pulled one crate on top of another pile, then to pile them higher and higher. Ever closer to their destination, the large square vent sticking out of the back of the building. Finally, Scootaloo clambered up on top of the pile, rearing on her hind legs and sticking her tongue out the side of her mouth before she finally hooked her hooves under the bottom edge of the vent and pulled herself up.
Whew! Now it's hot work.
Apple Bloom was next, swaying unsteadily on top of the piled debris before Scootaloo caught her hooves and drug her up inside.
I don't think it was the work that's got us so hot,
she said, sweating the hot airflow out of the shaft. Sweetie Belle paused below.
Are you sure this is a good idea? Come on, Sweetie Belle,
Scootaloo called.
Yeah, it ain't so bad. We'll be through the vents out into the kitchen in a jiffy. I dunno. Come on, hurry up.
Sweetie Belle sighed and climbed up after her friends, staring from the top of the swaying crates. She closed her eyes for a moment, steeling herself before she leapt and clung awkwardly to the metal shaft as the crates came crashing down below her.
Help!
Apple Bloom banged her head on the side of the narrow passage.
I can't turn around.
Scootaloo rolled her eyes.
Just let it grab onto your tail.
Apple Bloom winced as Sweetie Belle's teeth clamped down around the red appendage, gritting her teeth as she crawled forward after Scootaloo. Sweetie Belle's hind legs scrabbled against the back of the building, beating out a staccato rhythm that made Scootaloo lower her ears.
Do you want everybody to hear us? Then help!
Grabbing hold of Apple Bloom's shoulders, Scootaloo pulled, and finally Sweetie Belle was pulled inside of the sloped metal shaft. With the weight of two fillies descending on her, Scootaloo couldn't keep her footing, and all three began to tumble down inside through the wall, crashing into the vent over the stove. Scootaloo's eyes watered as boiling hot steam flowed around her, making her yell loudly and try to shove the other two fillies off of her.
I'm roasting here! Does that mean you're fired? No! No, get off!
With some amount of grunting and metallic banging, finally the fillies pulled back away from the grate and the ventilation shaft creaked ominously. The three fillies held their breath for several long seconds before it stopped moving, letting out a unified sigh of relief.
Ew, that was close,
Scootaloo said as she lifted her hoof to wipe the sweat off her forehead.
They're cooking stuff down there. I thought for a second that I was a goner.
The vent creaked one last time before the steel screws holding the last section in place gave out with a loud ping, dumping the three shrieking fillies down on the boiling pots of chocolate and caramel on the stove.
Is Apple Bloom all right? I came as soon as I heard, Applejack shouted as she burst through the door into the kitchen.
Her eyes flicked wildly across the three filly-shaped blobs of chocolate. The orange of Apple Bloom's eyes was the only thing separating her from the other two. Apple Bloom! Applejack lurched across the room, grabbing the chocolate-covered filly by the shoulders. Apple Bloom, speak to me! Please, just let me hear your voice one more time. Don't let it end this way! Oof, said the trapped filly.
Whoa there!
Rainbow flew over, prying Applejack away from her sister.
The girls are fine. They just got totally covered in Pinkie Pie's new chocolate.
Applejack relaxed, slumping against the Pegasus. What a relief. After a Big Mac told me, I thought...
I know, it is a total disaster,
Rarity wailed, her cheeks stained with twin lines of leaked mascara. Rainbow Dash arched an eyebrow.
You do realize that they are going to be okay once Mr. K gets back with that jackhammer, right?
Rarity raised her hooves to the heavens.
But they will never get all that caramel out of their manes! Cut 'em off, manes grow back,
Rainbow Dash shrugged. Rarity gasped and toppled over onto the floor. Applejack sniffed a few times before rubbing at her eyes with a hoof and laughing weakly. I gotta admit, it does smell mighty fine in here.
It's all my fault!
Pinkie shouted from the far side of the room, Applejack jerking her head as she noticed the deflated pink pony for the first time.
I thought it was just raccoons in the ventilation system again, so I left the pots and went to get a broom to scare them out, and then...
Pinkie Pie sniffed a few more times before going back to sobbing into her hooves. Applejack sighed heavily. She rose back to her hooves, charging over to hook one hoof over her friend's shoulders. It's all right, Sugar Cube. Nobody blames you for what happened.
But... Applejack's right,
Rainbow Dash said, flying over to wrap her hooves and wings around Pinkie Pie from the other side.
What happened wasn't your fault. Though, I do want to know, what the heck do you put into that chocolate anyway? It's like rock! Oh, it's just my super industrial architectural baking chocolate,
Pinkie Pie said, picking up her mane as her mane regained its fluffiness.
You see, I was thinking about making an all-you-can-eat party, but then I realized that you can't eat tables. But then I thought, Pinkie, why can't you eat tables? So then I tried one, but it didn't taste very good. But then I thought, what if the table was made out of chocolate? So I asked.
Rarity daubed at her eyes with the tissue.
What I want to know is what they were doing in the ventilation system in the first place. Were they trying to get their cutie marks?
Rainbow Dash shook her head.
Nah, that's way too lame for Scootaloo.
Agreed the trapped filly. I suppose I'll just have to ask them when they get out, Applejack said, shaking her head at the three chocolatey blobs.
Actually, I may be able to answer that question.
Forehead jerked towards the new voice in the room.
Twilight!
Twilight smiled weakly.
Sorry it took me so long. I was investigating.
Applejack blinked.
You didn't have to go and do that for us, Sugar Cube.
Twilight shook her head.
Nothing's more important than what happens to my best friends. Sisters.
She sighed, her ears falling.
You might not want to hear it, though.
Why? Rarity asked, her voice quivering.
Well...
Twilight's ears fell down to a piece of paper hovering in front of her snout, wrapped in violet magic.
I asked some of the kids at school if any of them knew why they might have gone to Sugar Corner and left their lunchboxes behind.
Twilight bit her lip.
2 of their friends said they heard them complaining about having the same thing for lunch every day and thought they might have been sneaking the Sugar Corner to... well...
Twilight sighed loudly. Applejack slid away from Pinkie Pie, charging back over next to where Apple Bloom stood stiffly.
Oh, Apple Bloom, why didn't you say anything to me?
She wrapped her hooves around her entombed sister.
I could have gotten some carrots from Golden Harvest or made some cornbread or something. I know how you feel,
Rarity said, hanging her head as she trudged over to stroke Sweetie Belle's shoulder.
If she just told me that she was tired of the salad wraps, I would have made her something else, like tea sandwiches or quiche.
Rarity paused.
Well, not quiche. That does not keep very well, but maybe a salad with just the right hint of vinaigrette dressing. It would have been nice.
The two ponies stared down in silence at their little sisters for several long moments before all the ponies turned their heads to look at Rainbow Dash.
What?
Rainbow Dash said, nervously fluffing her wings.
Don't you have anything to say?
Rainbow Dash fidgeted.
What am I supposed to say? You know, saying what would have been done differently, if only you'd known,
Twilight said, stepping forward.
Well, what am I supposed to do? It's not like she lives with me or anything.
You could have done something.
Like what?
I don't know, Applejack said, waving off. Maybe speak up and talk to her parents about what they made her for lunch or whatever?
But...
Applejack tilted her head. But what, Sugar Cube? Rainbow Dash gestured helplessly.
Squirtier said she always made her own lunch.